Hello, I'm Hope Logan. I am an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. The world inside the Bold and the Beautiful was about to erupt with another wave of emotional warfare. And at the center of it all stood the powerful, complicated legacy of the Forrester family. Inside the luxurious halls of Forrester Creations, tensions simmered beneath every polished surface and every carefully rehearsed smile. The atmosphere carried that unmistakable feeling that something major was about to change, as though the entire company itself was holding its breath. For Brooke Logan Forrester, this wasn't simply about ambition or status anymore. This was about proving that she still belonged at the top beside the man she loved, fighting for the future she had always envisioned with Ridge. Brooke had spent countless days pouring her heart into convincing Ridge that she deserved a place not just beside him personally, but professionally as well. In her mind, the two of them ruling the company together as co-CEOs represented more than leadership. It symbolized unity, redemption, and a future where they finally stood on equal ground. But even as Brooke dreamed of that future, Ridge Forrester found himself trapped in an impossible emotional storm. He understood Brooke's passion, and deep down, he could see the appeal of building a powerful partnership with her at the helm of the company. Yet every time he considered her proposal, another reality crashed into him with equal force. Steffy Forrester Finnegan already occupied that co-CEO position. Giving Brooke what she wanted wouldn't simply mean adding another seat at the table. It would mean taking something away from his daughter, forcing Steffy into a demotion that would undoubtedly ignite conflict throughout the entire family. Ridge knew this conversation had the power to fracture relationships, reopen old wounds, and send shockwaves through Forrester Creations. And still, despite all the danger surrounding the topic, he could no longer keep Brooke's growing ambition hidden. As Tuesday's explosive drama unfolded, Ridge finally sat down with Steffy, and the tension between father and daughter became almost unbearable. At first, he approached the subject carefully, testing the waters with vague hints and cautious words, as though he hoped the situation might somehow soften itself before the truth fully landed. But Steffy was far too sharp not to sense that something serious was coming. The moment Ridge began circling around discussions of leadership and Brooke's future at the company, suspicion flashed across Steffy's face. Then came the revelation that changed everything. Ridge finally admitted that Brooke had her eyes firmly locked on the co-CEO position, the very seat Steffy currently occupied. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted from uncomfortable uncertainty to outright battle lines being drawn. Steffy's reaction came fast and fierce, fueled by pride, anger, and the deep belief that she had earned her place through relentless hard work and loyalty to the family legacy. She refused to entertain the idea that Brooke could simply step into a role that Steffy viewed as rightfully hers. To Steffy, this wasn't just another corporate reshuffling. It was a direct threat against everything she had fought to protect. Her voice carried sharp conviction as she made it clear that the co-CEO seat belonged to her, and no one else. Brooke, in Steffy's eyes, needed to stop pushing this fantasy and accept reality before things spiraled even further out of control. The emotional intensity between them reflected years of unresolved tension, family rivalry, and competing visions for the future of Forrester Creations. And behind Steffy's fierce determination was a deeper fear she would never openly admit. The fear of losing her influence, her identity, and her place within the dynasty that defined her life. Meanwhile, far away from that escalating confrontation, Brooke's world was glowing with hope and possibility. She could almost see the future unfolding in front of her, a future where she and Ridge stood side by side, leading the company together as equals. The excitement inside her continued to grow stronger with every passing moment, filling her with renewed confidence and emotional energy she hadn't felt in a long time. When Hope Logan Spencer reunited with her mother, she immediately noticed the spark in Brooke's eyes, a spark filled with determination, optimism, and the thrilling belief that everything might finally be turning in their favor. For Hope, seeing Brooke so alive with ambition awakened something emotional inside her as well. She saw a woman refusing to give up on herself, refusing to back down from what she believed she deserved, and that inspired hope more than words could express. As mother and daughter talked, the possibilities surrounding this leadership shakeup began to feel almost irresistible. Hope started imagining what Brooke's rise to power could mean not only for their family, but also for her own struggling future at Forrester Creations. Her fashion line had been stalled for far too long, trapped in uncertainty and frustration, and suddenly this potential change at the top felt like the breakthrough they desperately needed. In Hope's mind, Brooke becoming co-CEO could open doors that had remained firmly shut under Steffy's leadership. It could reshape the company's priorities, restore momentum, and finally place Hope's work back into the spotlight where she believed it belonged. The emotional energy between Brooke and Hope became increasingly uplifting as they allowed themselves to dream about a brighter future together. For a brief moment, the weight of past disappointments faded away, replaced by excitement, hope, and the intoxicating belief that victory might finally be within reach. That growing confidence soon transformed into celebration, even though nothing had officially been decided yet. Brooke and Hope allowed themselves to embrace the possibility that their lives at Forrester Creations were on the verge of dramatically improving. There was laughter, relief, and emotional warmth flowing between them as they envisioned a future where everything finally aligned in their favor. Yet beneath all that optimism lingered a dangerous uncertainty neither woman fully wanted to acknowledge. Because while Brooke and Hope were busy celebrating what they believed was coming, Steffy was preparing for war. She had no intention of quietly surrendering her position or allowing Brooke to reshape the company without a fight. The battle for power inside Forrester Creations was only beginning, and every emotional fault line within the family was about to crack wide open. As the storm gathered strength, the future of Forrester Creations hung in delicate balance, with loyalties tested and emotions pushed to their breaking points. Ridge now stood trapped between two powerful women he cared deeply about, each demanding validation, respect, and control over the company's future. Brooke saw this moment as her long overdue chance to finally stand beside Ridge as an equal leader. Steffy viewed it as an attack on her rightful place within the family empire, and Hope quietly pinned her own dreams and future stability on the outcome of this bitter struggle. With ambition, family loyalty, and emotional history colliding all at once, the drama inside the bold and the beautiful was preparing to explode into a new chapter of betrayal, conflict, and emotional chaos that would leave nobody untouched. The emotional aftershocks of Ridge's revelation continued to spread through Forrester Creations like a gathering storm, turning every conversation into a battlefield hidden beneath polished smiles and designer glamour. What had once been a quiet discussion behind closed doors was now evolving into something far more dangerous, a full-scale power struggle capable of tearing apart both the company and the family that built it. Steffy Forrester Finnegan could feel the pressure mounting from every direction, and with each passing hour, her determination only hardened further. To outsiders, she appeared composed and confident, carrying herself with the authority of a woman born into leadership. But underneath that carefully controlled exterior, emotions churned violently. The idea of Brooke Logan Forrester stepping into the co-CEO position felt deeply personal to Steffy, almost like an attempt to erase everything she had sacrificed to protect her family's legacy. Every boardroom victory, every difficult decision, every painful compromise she had made for the company suddenly felt threatened by Brooke's growing ambition. At the same time, Brooke was experiencing an entirely different emotional journey, one fueled by hope powerful enough to make her believe destiny was finally shifting in her favor. For so long, she had existed in a complicated space within the Forrester family, loved by Ridge, yet constantly forced to defend her place against waves of judgment, resentment, and old rivalries that never truly disappeared. Now, for the first time in what felt like forever, Brooke saw a path toward stability and recognition that extended beyond romance. She imagined walking through the halls of Forrester Creations not as someone tolerated or questioned, but as a respected leader standing equally beside Ridge. The thought filled her with renewed confidence and emotional strength, almost as though years of insecurity were slowly melting away. Every hopeful glance from Hope Logan Spencer reinforced that feeling even further, convincing Brooke that this opportunity could change everything for both of them. Hope, meanwhile, found herself emotionally invested in this possible leadership shift more deeply than ever before. Watching her mother dream again awakened a fierce protective instinct inside her, because Hope understood just how many times Brooke had fought to prove herself, only to be pushed back down by the complicated dynamics of the Forrester family. Hope also couldn't ignore what this change might mean for her own future. Her fashion line had been trapped in uncertainty, overshadowed by tension and corporate politics that constantly seemed to favor Steffy's vision over hers. The possibility of Brooke stepping into power suddenly offered a glimmer of hope that her own creative ambitions could finally thrive again. In Hope's eyes, this wasn't simply about Brooke becoming co-CEO. It was about creating a future where both of them could finally stop fighting for scraps of approval and start building something lasting together. That shared dream created an emotional closeness between mother and daughter that felt stronger and warmer than it had in a very long time. But while Brooke and Hope allowed themselves to imagine brighter days ahead, Steffi was already strategizing how to stop this threat before it gained momentum. She knew Brooke's influence over Ridge was powerful, perhaps stronger than anyone wanted to admit, and that reality made the situation even more dangerous. Steffi refused to sit back and watch decisions about the company be shaped by emotion instead of loyalty to the Forrester legacy. In her mind, Brooke's desire for power represented instability, another example of personal relationships bleeding into business decisions that could damage everything the family had worked to build. And beneath Steffi's fierce resistance lingered another painful truth she could barely confront herself. She feared that if Brooke gained more authority beside Ridge, Steffi's own voice inside the company could slowly become secondary. The idea of losing that influence terrified her, because leadership at Forrester wasn't just a job, it was woven into her identity, her pride, and her connection to her family's history. Ridge found himself trapped deeper in the middle of the chaos, with every passing moment, struggling under the crushing emotional weight of trying to please everyone without destroying the fragile balance holding the family together. He understood Steffi's outrage because he knew exactly how much she had dedicated herself to the company. At the same time, he couldn't ignore Brooke's passion or the sincerity behind her belief that they could lead Forrester Creations together as a united team. Every conversation seemed to pull him in opposite directions, forcing him to confront painful questions he had long tried to avoid. Was this really about business? Or was it about love, loyalty, guilt, and years of emotional history colliding all at once? Ridge could sense that whatever decision he eventually made would carry consequences far beyond the boardroom. Someone would inevitably feel betrayed, someone would feel rejected, and the emotional damage might not be repairable once the dust settled. As anticipation built inside the company, whispers began spreading quietly through the halls of Forrester Creations. Employees sensed the tension in every meeting, every uneasy silence, and every strained interaction between the family members at the center of the storm. People started wondering whether the company was heading toward a dramatic restructuring or an all-out internal war. The uncertainty created an atmosphere thick with anxiety and speculation, making it impossible for anyone to fully focus on business alone. Even moments that appeared calm on the surface carried an undercurrent of emotional danger, as though everyone was waiting for the next explosion to erupt without warning. The glamorous world of fashion suddenly felt colder and more fragile than ever before. And still, despite all the conflicts surrounding them, Brooke and Hope continued holding tightly to their belief that change was coming. They allowed themselves to celebrate emotionally, convincing each other that this could finally be the turning point they had both been waiting for. Brooke envisioned herself reclaiming a powerful place inside the company, while Hope imagined her fashion line finally receiving the support and attention it deserved. For a brief time, their optimism created a sense of warmth and unity that pushed aside all the fear waiting just beyond the horizon. But deep down, uncertainty still lingered like a shadow neither woman could completely escape. Because in the world of the bold and the beautiful, victories rarely came without devastating consequences, and every dream carried the risk of heartbreak waiting just around the corner. As the battle for control intensified, one thing became painfully clear. This conflict was no longer just about a corporate title. It had evolved into a deeply emotional war over respect, family legacy, identity, and the desperate need to feel valued by the people who mattered most. Brooke refused to stop fighting for the future she believed she deserved. Steffy refused to surrender the position she believed she had earned. Hope clung to the possibility that this shift could rescue both her career and her family's happiness. And Ridge stood at the center of it all, forced to make impossible choices while the emotional walls around him closed in tighter with every passing moment. The stage was now fully set for betrayal, confrontation, and explosive emotional fallout that threatened to change the future of Forrester Creations forever. The deeper the conflict grew inside Forrester Creations, the more impossible it became for anyone to separate business from emotion. Every hallway conversation carried hidden meaning. Every glance across the office seemed loaded with tension, and every meeting felt like the calm before another devastating explosion. The company that once symbolized glamour, creativity, and family legacy was slowly transforming into a battlefield where loyalty and ambition collided with dangerous intensity. Brooke Logan Forrester could feel the pressure surrounding her from all sides, yet instead of retreating, it only strengthened her resolve. For years, she had endured criticism, judgment, and endless reminders that some members of the Forrester family would never fully accept her. But now, standing on the edge of what could become the biggest turning point of her life, Brooke refused to allow fear or resistance to push her aside again. She believed with all her heart that she belonged beside Ridge, not just as the woman he loved, but as a leader capable of helping shape the future of the company itself. That belief became even stronger every time she looked at Hope Logan Spencer and saw the excitement shining in her daughter's eyes. Hope had started to imagine a future where the constant obstacles standing in front of her career finally began to disappear. For so long, she had felt trapped under the weight of corporate politics and Steffy's unwavering control, watching her fashion line struggle to regain momentum while tension poisoned nearly every opportunity. But now, with Brooke potentially stepping into a co-CEO role, Hope could almost feel the future changing around them. She envisioned fresh opportunities, renewed creative freedom, and a company atmosphere no longer ruled entirely by Steffy's influence. More than anything, Hope loved seeing her mother hopeful again. There was something deeply emotional about watching Brooke light up with confidence after spending so much time doubting whether she would ever truly have a secure place within the Forrester empire. Meanwhile, Steffy Forrester Finnegan's anger continued simmering dangerously beneath the surface, growing sharper every time Brooke's name entered the conversation. To Steffy, this situation represented far more than a disagreement over titles or leadership structure. It felt like a direct challenge to her authority, her accomplishments, and her identity as a Forrester. She had poured herself into the company, sacrificed endlessly for it, and carried enormous responsibility on her shoulders through some of the family's darkest moments. The idea that Brooke could suddenly step into her world and potentially push her aside ignited a fierce emotional response that Steffy could barely contain. She refused to believe Brooke had earned the right to take over a position Steffy fought so hard to secure. And perhaps most painfully of all, Steffy couldn't ignore the growing fear that Ridge might actually consider Brooke's proposal seriously. That fear began creeping into Steffy's thoughts more and more, especially when she noticed Ridge struggling to give her firm reassurance. He wasn't outright rejecting Brooke's dream, and that uncertainty alone was enough to deeply unsettle Steffy. Ridge's hesitation spoke volumes, even when he tried to remain neutral. Every careful word, every pause, every attempt to avoid choosing sides only made the emotional divide wider and more dangerous. Ridge loved both Brooke and Steffy in different ways, and the impossible position he found himself in was beginning to visibly wear him down. He understood that no matter what decision he made, someone he cared about would end up devastated. The pressure weighed heavily on him, turning even ordinary moments into emotionally exhausting confrontations he could no longer escape. As the days moved forward, the emotional temperature inside Forrester Creations continued climbing higher. Employees whispered quietly behind office doors, sensing that the company was inching closer toward a major internal collapse. Rumors spread rapidly about Brooke's possible rise to power, and with every new whisper came fresh speculation about what would happen to Steffy if Ridge supported the idea. Some believed the company desperately needed change, while others feared the family drama would destroy the stability of the business altogether. The uncertainty created a suffocating atmosphere where nobody felt fully secure anymore. Even longtime employees who had witnessed countless family battles before could sense that this conflict carried a different kind of danger. The emotional stakes were becoming too personal, too raw, and too deeply tied to years of unresolved history. Still, Brooke allowed herself to hold on to hope with remarkable determination. In quiet moments, she imagined standing proudly beside Ridge during major company announcements, the two of them presenting a united vision for the future of Forrester Creations. She imagined finally being viewed, not as an outsider fighting for acceptance, but as a respected partner whose voice truly mattered. Those dreams filled her with warmth and excitement, offering a glimpse of happiness she desperately wanted to believe was possible. Hope encouraged those dreams every step of the way, reinforcing Brooke's belief that they were finally moving toward something better. Together, mother and daughter shared emotional conversations about new beginnings, future success, and the possibility that everything they had struggled through might finally lead somewhere meaningful. But looming over all that optimism was the undeniable reality that Steffy was preparing herself for battle with equal determination. She had no intention of quietly surrendering her authority or allowing Brooke and Hope to reshape the company according to their vision. The fiercer Brooke's confidence became, the more fiercely Steffy dug in her heels. Every emotional wound from the past, every rivalry, every bitter disagreement between these women began resurfacing all over again with dangerous force. The conflict was no longer contained beneath polite professionalism. It was becoming deeply personal, fueled by pride, fear, resentment, and the desperate need to protect what each woman believed rightfully belonged to her. And at the center of this emotional war stood Ridge, increasingly haunted by the realization that he might be powerless to stop the destruction coming toward his family. The choices ahead of him felt impossible. Supporting Brooke could shatter his relationship with Steffy and ignite chaos throughout the company. Rejecting Brooke could crush her hopes completely and reopen emotional wounds that had never fully healed between them. No matter which path he chose, someone would walk away heartbroken. As tensions tightened like a storm ready to explode, the future of the bold and the beautiful promised even greater betrayals, painful confrontations, and emotional fallout powerful enough to leave permanent scars on everyone involved.